Most people see the H-3 Freeway in Hawaii as a masterpiece of engineering. It cuts through the Haloa Valley like a silver ribbon, offering views so beautiful they almost look artificial. But for those who live there, the H-3 isn't just a road, it's a scar. During its construction, workers reported equipment failing for no reason. Massive stones, part of ancient heiau or temples, were crushed to make way for the concrete. But many locals refused to even set foot on the site. They knew about the Kapu. In the old tongue, Kapu isn't just a word for forbidden, it's a spiritual boundary. It's a property line between the living and the things that were here long before us. When you cross it, you don't just break a law, you incur a debt. I was driving that stretch late last Tuesday. My car didn't overheat, it didn't run out of gas. It simply stopped. One moment, the engine was humming, and the next, it was as if the mechanical soul of the vehicle had been sucked out. I pulled over to the narrow shoulder, the mountain walls pressing in on both sides. The silence wasn't the peaceful kind you find in the country. It was heavy, like physical pressure pressing against my eardrums, making it feel as though I was breathing through a damp cloth. I stepped out of the car hoping to catch a signal. That's when I noticed the dead air. In Hawaii, the night is usually a symphony of crickets and wind through the tropical leaves. But here, everything had been deleted. No insects, no breeze. It was as if the environment had been put on mute. Then came the vibration. It wasn't a sound at first. It was a sub-bass frequency so low I felt it in my molars before I heard it. A rhythmic thrumming coming from the earth itself. I looked in my rear-view mirror and saw a series of orange sparks dancing in the peripheral darkness. Every time I tried to focus on them, they vanished. My mouth began to fill with a metallic, copper-like taste, the kind you get right before a massive lightning strike. And then it happened. A distant, mournful blast of a conch shell, the pu. It didn't sound like it was coming from the valley. It sounded like it was vibrating from inside my own chest cavity. The air temperature didn't just drop, it plummeted. My breath began to hitch, not from the cold, but from a primal realization that the silence was gone, replaced by something much older and infinitely more patient. The orange glow in the distance started to grow, flickering with the uneven cadence of primitive torches. The smell hit me next. It was the scent of ancient lightning, heavy ozone mixed with charred wood, and the damp, cloying smell of disturbed earth. I remembered the stories. If you hear the drums, if you hear the shell, you don't run. You can't outrun them. You get off the path, you lie face down in the dirt, and you offer total, absolute submission. My body moved before my brain could argue. I collapsed onto the gravel, pressing my forehead into the cold, sharp stones. There's a psychological concept called ironic process theory. The more you try to suppress a thought, the more it consumes you. As I lay there, the rule "don't look" became a physical torture. I could feel the heat of the torches now, a dry radiation passing over my back, even as the sweat on my neck began to turn into a layer of frost. The sound of the march was deafening. Hundreds of bare feet hitting the pavement in a synchronized rhythm that forced my own heart to change its beat to match theirs. The footsteps stopped. Not down the road, but right there. I could hear the rustle of dried leaves and the faint clinking of stone weapons inches from my ear. I squeezed my eyes shut so hard it hurt, praying to a God I hadn't spoken to in years that I was invisible enough, small enough to be ignored. The silence that followed was the longest 6 seconds of my life. I was no longer a person. I was just a heartbeat waiting for a verdict. Then the voice came. It wasn't a whisper, but it wasn't a shout either. It was a guttural, singular word that seemed to bypass my ears and vibrate directly through my skeletal system. Now. In the old language, it means mine. The moment that word was uttered, the air felt like it was being hollowed out. I felt 1,000 cold needles passing through my torso, as if the entire procession wasn't walking around me, but through me. It was a sensation of being momentarily unplugged from reality. The smell of fresh sea salt and ancient decay clashed violently in my nostrils, a nauseating mix of the beginning and the end. I felt a weight on my left shoulder. Not a heavy weight, but a searing heat, like a brand being pressed into my skin through my jacket. I didn't scream. I couldn't. My lungs were paralyzed. The flickering orange light intensified until I could see the glow through my closed eyelids, and then, as quickly as the conch had sounded, the heat began to recede. The rhythmic drumming started again, moving away, fading into a frequency so high it turned into a persistent ringing in my ears. I stayed there, face down in the dirt, for what felt like hours after the last vibration vanished, too terrified to acknowledge that I was still breathing. When I finally managed to stand, the freeway was normal again. The crickets were back, the wind was blowing. My car started on the first try, as if nothing had ever been wrong, but when I got home and pulled off my jacket, I saw it. On my left shoulder, there was a soot-black handprint. I tried every chemical, every soap, every scrub I could find, but the mark wouldn't budge. It's not just a stain, it's part of the skin now. And every night, precisely at 3 a.m., that spot on my shoulder turns feverishly warm to the touch. I realized then that I didn't survive that night. I was collected. I'm not safe, I'm just on layaway. Sometimes, when I'm sitting in a perfectly quiet room, I feel a rhythmic thumping in my chest. It's slightly offbeat from my actual pulse. It's a second, tribal heartbeat, steady and patient. If you ever find yourself on the H-3 at night and you feel that same phantom rhythm, don't check your watch, check your shadows. They aren't looking for intruders anymore. They're just checking their inventory. And they never forget a face they've claimed.